We're going to revisit coterminal angles because I'm seeing a lot of people are struggling with this. Um, in terms of you're not in the multiple choice question I'm giving you where it's like choose all that apply. Not everyone is getting those 100%. So I think it's a good idea to go back and revisit this idea. All right. So we're going to talk about coterminal angles, and let's start with 961 degrees. And I'm going to look for a coterminal angle that's somewhere between 0 and 360 degrees. If you notice, I'm using the interval notation. So I'm starting at 0 and going up all the way to 360, but I'm not going to include 360 as a possible answer. Because 0 degrees and 360 degrees are essentially the same thing. They both end at the same spot. So here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to take the 961 degrees and I'm going to subtract an entire rotation from it. So minus 360. And we're going to end up with 601 degrees. Yep. But the issue is that the 601 that I got doesn't fit within the interval I was given. So I'm going to subtract another 360. And that'll get me down to 24, 1, so 240 degrees. So that's the answer that I'm looking for. All right, this and this are coterminal angles of that. It's just a matter of adding or subtracting an entire revolution to get that coterminal angle. All right. And I know I'm done here because, again, this answer is between these two right there. So let's try another one, right? I did a positive one where I had to subtract 360 degrees from the number that was larger than both of my values, aka is bigger than 0 and 360, the interval I was looking at. So let's try out, say, negative 1,000 degrees. And I'm going to look for a coterminal angle between 0 and 360 degrees. Okay? So in the last problem, I had to subtract 360 because the angle I was given was larger than my interval. So I had to bring it back down. This time, I have an angle that is lower than either value in my interval. So I'm going to add 360 to bring it up. So if I add that, I get 64. So negative 640 degrees. It's still lower, so I add another one. Which would give me a negative 280 degrees. Still lower, so I add another one. My answer should now be a positive 80. That answer is within the interval I was given. So I know negative 640, negative 280, positive 80 are coterminal angles with a negative 1,000 degrees. It's just a matter of adding or subtracting the 360 when you're given degrees. Now, if we're talking about radians, though, that changes our answers a little bit because, we're not dealing with degrees anymore, so the amount that I'm adding or subtracting changes. And this is where my fraction knowledge, fluency comes into play. So let's say that I have 27 pi over 4. Okay? And I'm looking for my answer within the range of 0 to 2 pi. Notice how the 0 stays 0 because 0 degrees is the same as 0 radians, and 360 degrees is the same as 2 pi, aka a full rotation around the circle. But now I have 27 over 4. 27 divided by 4 is larger than 2, so I know my answer is bigger, right? This number is larger than the 2 pi, so I need to subtract a couple revolutions to get it down and figure out the coterminal angle between 0 and 2 pi. So if I take the 27 pi over 4 and I subtract 8 pi over 4, eight divided by 4 is 2, so in a way I took this 2 pi, this whole revolution, and rewrote it in terms of 4. I would get 19 pi over 4. That's still bigger, so I do it again. Gets me 11 pi over 4. That's still bigger. Do it again. Right. This answer falls within the given range I had. It falls somewhere between 0 and 2 because it's 3/4. I think of the pi as a like a unit of measurement, so to speak, because then I can just kind of focus on the actual fraction part and take it from there. Right. So 27 over 4, 27 pi over 4, 19 pi over 4, 11 pi over 4, and 3 pi over 4 are all coterminal angles. The only difference is the amount of revolutions that it took to get me there. So let's try another one. And I'm going to think of a nice prime number to use. So let's make it 29 pi over 6. All right. 29 pi over 6. And just for the heck of it, let's make it negative while we're at it. Still the same question. I want to figure out a coterminal angle between 0 and 2 pi. So the fact that it's negative means that it's below 0. So that means I'm going to have to add an entire revolution to it in order to make it fall between 0 and 2 pi. So I'm going to add 12 pi over 6 because 12 divided by 6 is 2. So this answer that I have right here, this fraction, is equivalent to that. It's another way of saying the fraction with a common denominator, so it allows me to do my work. Right? And that gets me negative 17 pi over 6. Do it again, because it's still negative, and I need a number between 0 and 2 pi. I get negative 5 pi over 6. Turns out I have to do it a third time. Then it'll get me a 7 pi over 6. So my answer is finally positive, so it has to be between 0 and 2 pi. But it turns out that these other angles that I'm underlining are all coterminal with it, because it's the same angle, it's just I'm taking away revolutions in the negative direction this time that it had. So that's all you have to do. All right. So just keep that in mind as you're working through these, how to convert degrees to radians. So when you have a multiple choice question that says which of these would be congruent, or which of these would be coterminal angles with the given one that I have, or would have the same reference angle, think about the reference angles you could possibly have and go from there.